Hello, everybody. I'm just about to start our Hasidut class. Of course, as always, we are learning from the Kedusha Levi. When are we going to, open a new sefer? I don't know. I feel like there's a lot that we can glean from Levi Yitzchak Miberdichev. Again, 18th century Hasidic rabbi, born in 1740, and he was the rabbi in a small town in Berdichev. So if you're just joining us, we've been learning from his book, the Kedusha Levi, for many months now. And tonight is no exception. Our topic tonight is called Where God and Israel Hide, because I want to teach you two texts that from this past Saturday's Torah portion that I really love and I think have beautiful messages for us. So let's jump right into it. So Vayetze Yaakov, this was Parshat Vayetze, and this is a comment on the very first line, and Jacob went out. Peiresh Rashi. Kol zman sahad tzadik ba'ir. Anytime there's a righteous person in a city, hu hoda. This is the beauty of the city. The Kashal Rashi, for there's some difficulty with Rashi's comment here. Dalama Katuv, Vayelech Haran. Why is it written, and Jacob went to Haran? It should have written that Jacob went down to Haran. Kefeirush, as it's explained, Bechama Mekomot, Dahacholech Me'eretz Yisrael Lachutz La'aretz Kativ Vayered. As it's written anywhere, when you leave the land of Israel, anywhere outside of the land of Israel, it's written Vayered. We call it going down, just like we call moving to Israel Aliyah, going up. Shavua Tov to Elaine Rotenberg, to my mom joining us in Florida. And so he asks this question. Why doesn't it say Vayered Yaakov when he leaves the land of Israel to go to Haran? Instead it says Vayelech, and he went. It does not say Vayered, and he went down. Amnam Ikar. So this is the essence here. The Eretz Yisrael, Gavoa Beruchaniyut HaKedusha Michutz La'aretz. That Israel indeed is elevated in its spirituality from places outside of the land of Israel. Lechem Kativ Vayered. Thus, it's written Vayered. Masha'in kan b'yitziat hatzadik Yaakov Avinu. So this was not the case when Jacob went out. When b'yitziat hatzadik, when this righteous person Jacob went out. Kashiyatza mi Beersheva, when he went out from Beersheva, Panan Hoda, the beauty of that city left with him. Perush shahahod panav halachimo, that the beauty went away and went with him. Ukedushat Eretz Yisrael hachaimo, and the holiness of the land of Israel went with him, went with Jacob. Dehu hahod, for that is beauty. V'lazeh kativ vayelech Haran, and thus it's written, and he went to Haran, not went down. V'lo vayered. Sheyaakov lo yarad klal, because he didn't go down in any sense. Ze kavanat chochmenu, zichronon livracha, umuva'a barashi b'pasuk, v'hine anochi imach. And this is what our sages explain, and also when Rashi says, regarding the pasuk, the verse, when God says that I will be with you, shene'ekar har ha-moriah uvalakan, this midrash that Mount Moriah, the place on which the Temple Mount is built, was uprooted and went in that place that Jacob was. Ki Yaakov haya meitzar al shehutzrach lalechet me'eretz Yisrael lechutz haaretz. Jacob was really forced to leave Eretz Yisrael and to go outside of the land. And thus, Rashi says, Keparashat Vayigash, in Parshat Vayigash, al tira merda mitzrayma. Don't be afraid to go down to Egypt. And it's explained there, Lachen heralo Hashem Yitbarach shahar hamorian akar etzlo. And because it was shown to him. It's explained there that God tells Jacob midrashically here, that Mount Moriah, the place on which the temple is built, was uprooted for his sake and went with him outside the land of Israel. Ubezeh siman shelo yityare, and this is a sign. This was the sign that Jacob shouldn't be afraid. Sheba avuro yelech imo kedushat eretz Yisrael. For on his account, the holiness of the land of Israel went with him. Kamo shara'a ata, as we see now. Sheba avuro halach har haMoriah. For on his account, Mount Moriah was moved to a new place. V'haven, and understand this, he says. For anybody who's been to the land of Israel, you know that it can be quite difficult to leave. As the Kedush HaLevi himself says, there is an elevated sense of spirituality. Elsewhere we read that even the air itself makes one a little bit wiser in the land of Israel. And leaving Israel can feel like you're leaving behind a deep level of holiness. But what the Kedush HaLevi is saying, by the way, who lived in Berdichev, not in the land of Israel, he's saying that the holiness of the land of Israel is not relegated to that particular region. You can tap into that holiness specifically through acts of tzedakah, through righteousness. Now he says that it's really the tzaddik, the ultimate righteous person, Jacob here, who carries the holiness and the beauty of the land of Israel with them wherever they go. From that view, when we connect ourselves to teachers, to role models, who we trust and who we love, we are tapping in through them to the holiness of the land of Israel itself. That is to say, through a deeper connection to Kedusha, to beauty, to God, to wisdom. But I want to take it a step further than just saying that the holiness of the land of Israel can be found within one tzaddik or a few tzaddikim or tzaddikot. That each of us acts as a tzaddik at some point. There's always moments, we can look back at moments that we're genuinely proud of, that we look back and we think that this was my best moment, this was my best self. And in those moments when we're bringing out tzedakah, when we're bringing out justice and equality and righteousness into the world, in those moments there's a taste of the holiness of Eretz Yisrael that can be found. And this text was comforting to me because I love Israel. Kayla, my wife, and I met in Jerusalem, and there really is no feeling like waking up and feeling the holiness like around you in the land of Israel. But here, it's a promise that Levi Yitzchak gives us, that you can tap into that holiness, and even sometimes you can take it with you. And that it's not always going down. It's not always vayered when you leave the land of Israel. There is times where it's vayelech, where it is one, you go forth, and you carry that holiness with you in your actions. You find that holiness in trusted teachers, and it doesn't just stay in Israel. We can find it in ourselves, and we can find it in others. So this is the first teaching I wanted to share with you today. And before we go to the second, I'll just pause in case anybody has thoughts or questions you can put into the chat, and I'll say Shavua Tov to Joel and to Yochev, Shalom again. I have one more short teaching that I want to share with you. So that was the part of our session tonight about where Israel hides. The holiness of Israel hides within righteous individuals, within the tzaddik, according to Levi Yitzchak. And also, I'm expanding it, within our own moments of being tzaddikim, of being righteous. Okay. And now the second part of where God hides. This is from chapter 28, verse 11. It says, Vayikach me'avnei hamakom. This is when Jacob falls asleep on his way leaving the land of Canaan on what we're told is Mount Moriah. He says, Vayikach me'avnei hamakom vayasem mera'ashotav vayishkav b'makom hahu. And Jacob took from the rocks of that place, and he placed them under his head, and he slept in that place. And of course, this is the moment when he dreams of a ladder with angels going up and down toward heaven. He took from the rocks of that place, put them under his head, and dwelt and slept in that place, laid down in that place. So here's how Levi Yitzchak understands it. He says, Vayikach ma'avnei, and he took from the stones, Ze ha'otiot. Ze ha'otiot. These are the letters. Kamavo'ar b'Sefer Yetzirah, as is explained in Sefer Yetzirah, one of our oldest mystical texts. At least 1,800 years old, the Sefer Yetzirah says that what we should understand there is when Jacob took from the rocks, Ze ha'otiot, these are the letters, specifically the letters of the Aleph Bet. And Yochev, I see you have a comment. I'll put it in to Google Translate in just a moment. Hamakom, the place. Ze hakadosh baruch hu, this is the Holy One, blessed be He. This is God. Kama amar chachmeinu, as our sages said, hu mekomo shel olam, God is the place of the world. So what Levi Yitzchak is doing here, he's going to change this entire sentence. He's going to make it mean something completely different. The stones are letters, the letters of the Aleph Bet. Makom is God. This is one of the names we use for God. We use this name for God in Passover. We use it in houses of mourning. When we say Hamakom Yenachem Etchem, Hamakom Yenachem Etchem, may God, who is called Makom, bless you, and comfort you. And he says, that's Makom. V'yasem, and now he's going to go even farther. V'yasem mera'ashotav, and he put them under his head. Klomar, instead we should read Bereshit hamachashava, at the front of his thoughts. At the front of his thoughts. So, let's reread the sentence according to Levi Yitzchak. So, in the original text, it's Vayikach ma'avnei hamakom v'yasem mera'ashotav. He took from the stones of the place and he put it under his head. Levi Yitzchak says, no, don't read. Stones are the letters. Makom is God. And he put them under his head means he put them at the forefront of his thoughts. So we should read it like this. And he took from the letters of God and he put them at the forefront of his thoughts. And let's see where it continues. Ze vayishkav. And this explains Vayishkav, that word, and he laid down. Instead of Vayishkav, read Vayesh Kaf Bet. And there is Kaf Bet, which in Gematria is 22. Vayesh Kaf Bet Otiot Bamakom. There are 22 letters Bamakom, in that place. That is to say, in God. Hahu Lashon Nistar. This is a hidden language of what's happening here. V'hamevin yavin, and those who understand will understand, he says. So that last bit of the verse, Vayishkav b'makom, don't read and he laid down in the place. Read Vayesh esrim ushtayim b'makom, yesh kaf bet b'makom, and there are 22 letters of God. So let's read the whole sentence. According to Levi Yitzchak, it says, And Jacob, not that Jacob took stones and put them under his head and laid down in the place to go to sleep. No. Levi Yitzchak says there's a hidden meaning here, which is this. Jacob took from the letters of God and he put them at the forefront of his thoughts. And there are 22 letters in the name of God. In God. And in that's why he had that dream of the ladder up to heaven. That's why he had a revelation that night of God. That's why he had an intimate moment with God, is because he meditated on the letters themselves. This is a Kabbalistic idea that the whole world was created through the letters. Letters are a key part of revelation. Even on a simple level. Language is required for any kind of revelation. Without words, without letters, all we would be making is sounds. But I have thoughts, you have thoughts, and we imagine Kabbalistically that there's a world of thought which gets revealed in words and speech through letters. And there's a way when you tap into the letters and the mysticism of how one combines the letters and meditates on the letters, that you can kind of work backwards from this moment to that higher power, that higher world. This is, you can imagine is the lowest of all of the revealed worlds of revelation. But when we meditate on the letters, we're tapping in to something ancient. And here, this is, according to the Kedusha Levi, hidden language, just as the knowledge of how to meditate on the letters, how to use the letters, and combine them in particular ways to reach God, to tap into something truly mystical, truly holy. Just like that is hidden, so too this language is hidden in this particular pasuk. So it's not that Jacob fell asleep on some rocks and had a dream. It's that he was meditating on the letters themselves, on the 22 letters, and presumably, particular combinations of those, and then through that had a mystical experience. I don't feel like I can go into any further detail, because I'm even though I understand the concept, I don't know how to meditate on the letters like that. But there is beauty in the letters that I'll just mention. The Aleph itself, is made up of, 2 yuds and a vav, and it itself, those 3 letters make the gematria of 26, which is God's name, Yud He Vav He. But Aleph itself is also the number 1, which is also a representation of God in a different kind of way, the unity of God. And each letter has its own mystical quality, and then when you combine them, it's only further. Why 22? Why 22? Let me think for a second. Why 22? Yeah, that's a good question, because we have Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet, Hey, Vav, Zayin, Chet, Yeah, 22 letters in the Aleph Bet, right? Aleph Bet, Gimel, Dalet, Hey, Vav Zayin Chet Tet Yud Kaf Chaf Lamed Mem Nun Samach Ayin Pei Tzadi Kuf Reish Shin Tet. No, it's 23. Let's see. Are we counting that right? Why 22? I have to get back to you. I can tell you there are 22 letters in the phrase Ma'avne Hamakom Vayasem Arashotav from the rocks of the place and put him under his head. Yeah. Mom, I appreciate you calling me out on that. Let me look into that, and hopefully next week I'll have a good answer for you. This, by the way, why at the end of his statement here he says, "V'hamevin yavin." Those who understand will understand what I'm talking about. Let's see if we can get to the bottom of it for next time. Okay, hold on a second. And Yochev, I'll translate yours. Okay. Yochev, you wrote, what a great privilege that God gives us. When God allows that in doing good, holiness comes into the world. Amen. And so, yes, there is a world of thoughts that is materialized by words, and the approach of God requires us to go up each step by step. I love that. Yeah, notably to go up each step by step, because God created the world, if we imagine from, above to below, then when we go to God, we're climbing the ladder. And if you notice, when the language of the ladders, the angels are going up and down. And in that kind of meditation that Jacob was doing on the letters, it was, going up, kind of working backwards, as we said, through creation. And then he said, truth, there is much more to know, and the Kabbalah helps. We are here, Rabbi, drinking your teaching words. I'm thrilled to hear that. Okay, now I'm going crazy. Let's count the letters in the Aleph Bet, everybody. Aleph Bet, Gimel, Daled, Hey, Vav, Zayin, Chet, Tet, Yud, Kaf, Lamed, Mem, Nun, Samach, Ayin, Pei, Tzadi, Kuf, Resh, Taf. Yeah, okay, good, 22. That's what I thought. Yes, 22, because there are 22. Yeah, for a moment, why did I think? Oh, I think I counted Kaf and Chaf. Phew, that was a close one. Yeah. So 22 letters in the alphabet. Exactly. That's why 22. Vayishkav b'makom, and Jacob's laid down in the place. Don't read it as Jacob laid down. Read it as Vayesh kaf bet b'makom. There are 22, that is to say, letters in God's revelation, in God, it says. And then Yocheb, this is a very fascinating subject. Today we watched a speech with Rabbi Alon Anava about it, and now you come to enrich and understand. Don't you love it when that happens? When you learn something, and then it shows up again and again. And this is part of the beauty, by the way, of studying Torah, and why we read the Torah every single year. It's because when we see something, we can go deeper and deeper into it. That's also part of the beauty of the letters, of the Hebrew letters themselves. We all, I can't say we all, but, we all at least have access, to the Aleph Bet, to the 22 letters in the Aleph Bet and their forms. But let this be, if it's the first time, great. If it's not, let it be a reminder that there's deep meaning in the letters themselves and their forms and in their combinations. So with that, I'll send you off. Have a Shavua Tov. I invite you, if you do any kind of meditation this week on the Hebrew letters, I'll give you a tool, and you can write me next time or during this week to tell me if it's working for you. I invite you to close your eyes and just visualize the letter Aleph. and let it be a kind of Aleph meditation. Visualize its form, specifically the way it's written in a Sefer Torah, with the Vav and the 2 Yuds on either side. And let me know if, that helps you connect at all to God, to Torah, or to Israel. In light of this teaching, it could be an interesting experience. So with that, Shavua Tov, and I look forward to learning next week. Okay, bye everybody.